It has been staggering. The last 20 years in particular has seen an acceleration of development. Things like indices we collect, like hotels, for example. In 2001, there was one hotel in Bankside, quite a modest hotel. Now we're talking about 4 being developed in Blackfriars simultaneously as we speak. 2012 Olympics was a big thrust for hotel development, but of course hotels just were reflection of the economic and commercial changes that had happened here.
What it was like before year 2000?
Did you and see people? So politicians saw the area different. Central government began to see the area differently, and I think it's fair to say that the private sector has played a huge role in changing Bankside. Investment that had been starved, the area had been starved from investment flooded in. I did this calculation based on rateable values. This place has been around since the 12th century as a kind of reasonably important settlement. But in the last 20 years, the acceleration has been enormous. We've calculated that the value built over 600 years was increased by 50% in 2 decades. That's stretching our parameter to include the Shard, of course. But that says something about the rapidity of change over the last 20 years.
So when was it that this BID, a Business Improvement District, was set up?
Well, that was a nice coincidence. The fact that suddenly you had this private sector interest, suddenly you had new occupiers coming in. The Tate and Globe had started a consumer and visitor boom. There weren't any facilities for supporting the number of tourists who were coming into the area. And perchance this legislation pertaining to setting up business improvement districts was announced around about 2000, 2001, just as these the ribbons were being cut on these developments. So we were one of the first areas, 5 areas in central London, who piloted the thinking behind that. And when the legislation was enacted in 2004, we were off and ready. We were ready to go to ballot. And we did, and we were successful, and we've been successful in the 3 ballots since.
Well, you mentioned the Globe and Tate Modern, and it appears that art is a very important part in this area.
I think it is. It historically is, and we were speaking just earlier, weren't we, about heritage, tradition, and what role that can play in a changing environment. Well, I think those are the kind of cornerstones for how we view the area. People, I think, see the retention of the old fabric here as important as the new facilities that come through. The ability to wander around medieval street patterns is something that we have lost in many of our cities through kind of broad scale redevelopment. And we've taken culture and heritage as major planks of our manifesto for physical improvement in the area. You know, a new strand perhaps is kind of environmental sustainability, and we've got a very strong conceptual basis built around what we refer to as Bankside urban forest. But culture is certainly an equal component to that, I'd say. And culture in its broader sense, it's not just about art. It's about things like Borough Market, and it's things about the community that's been here for centuries as well.
Green environment and social responsibility. These are also important elements in the operation of BIDs.
Yes, it is, and we acknowledge the fact that this is a business-led initiative, and commercial success for our members is an important factor for us. But our membership has embraced the idea that commercial success is a much broader test than simply the bottom line. So when we introduced corporate social responsibility as one of our themes, the response from the membership was very, very positive. And that is quite a broad program with us.
So who are the members? Your members, they are local businesses?
Yes, they are. So there's about 1,200 businesses throughout the area, and we appeal to all of them to join us. Because of the way the mechanism works, around about 700 become automatic members if the ballot is successful. And that ballot, as I've said, is based on a manifesto, and this manifesto sets out the whole programme, including the corporate social responsibility.
So why these members, all in all, are embracing the idea of corporate social responsibility?
Well, I think some of them want to become rooted in what is, for most of them, a fairly new area. We've gauged that within the term of our bid, 5 years, the churn rate of businesses may be as high as 40%. So we are continuously meeting new businesses that come into the area, some of them large corporations, some of them very small operations. And the common feature, almost without exception, that naturally there will be some people who are going to disdain some of this activity, but by and large, businesses come to Bankside because they want to be part of a community.
Good community.
Yeah, and we use the term neighbourhood.
Neighbourhood.
Yeah, yeah. We people live here, people visit here, people work here, and people run businesses here. And I think it's the kind of mixed-use nature of and the cultural heritage which makes the place attractive to newcomers. And there seems to be no staunching that flow. And certainly the investment market, we're contemplating probably another phase of rapid development. There are 6 or 7 major sites within the area that are going to come on stream during the next 4 or 5 years. So an employment base that has grown from 30,000 to 60,000 people will be exceeding 70 or 80,000 people by the end of the decade, one expects.
I saw a lot of people enjoying walking around the area and then making those enjoyments. There are new bars and restaurants and small businesses and even greens and flowers.
Absolutely, absolutely. And some of that is happenstance. Some of that is happening because people see opportunities. And it may be argued that that is the best way of developing an area opportunistically. But some of it needs nurturing, some of it needs support, and that's where strategic concepts can help. So we discovered through our tracking of footfall, plus other data sources like spend in cafes and bars and so forth, that there was quite a rigid pattern in people's use of the area, which is the one you described. We had possibly an over densely used riverside, and then within 50 metres of that, economic and social activity falling rapidly. So part of what we're doing through Bankside Urban Forest is considering how some of that activity could wash southwards, and some of that is about facilities and amenity, and some of that is about tackling some of the impediments there is to that movement. You know, people need reassurance in developing new areas. I think people are exploring cities to a greater extent. There's plenty of experience from international capitals that people are interested in going to the new arrondissements in Paris or the new quarters in Lisbon, and London is subject to the same kind of trends, I think. How can we support that? Well, we've got a major road, which is a red route, which has been problematic, and we put in this rather playful idea of colourful crossings, which you've seen, and it may be seen as frivolous by some people, but on the other hand, when we've done the evaluation, we've done the attitudinal surveying, it's certainly suggesting that it's civilising that street for pedestrians and encouraging them to flow down there. And then, of course, we've got what is the biggest structure in London, the rail viaduct.
Yes.
And that's been a rather daunting impediment, and it's turning into a huge asset for the area, potentially, as we take this idea of a low line, which is a pedestrian route away from traffic, and that kind of speaks to the air quality agenda that we're also very keen and intent on pursuing.
The rail infrastructure looked really Dickensian.
Yes, it certainly is, and the images from that period are very stark indeed, and it's quite interesting the way that the viaducts are allowed to be above grounds in South London, whereas when you get to the north, which was prosperous much more quickly, obviously.
Now it's attracting thriving community.
Precisely. Yes, precisely. So these arches within the viaduct are being used for all kinds of uses, but in the past, a lot of these uses were not employment generating to a greater deal. There may have been a small garage with one or two people. There may have been one famous case right by the riverside, a warehouse for potatoes. Now, of course, there are restaurants, bars, offices for design studios, etc., which is all very positive. But we're not blind to the fact that mix we spoke about earlier could be challenged from a different direction, couldn't it? We need to ensure that some of the artisans and some of the small
businesses... What sort of challenges are you speaking about?
Well, we'd be concerned, I think, if some of the lifeblood that kept this area what it was would be lost. Values are rising. Values have risen very quickly and continue to rise, residential and commercial values. That inevitably is pricing out certain forms of uses. No one, I don't think, has found a way to tackle that through subsidy or through regulation. So what I think we need is through a planning mechanism and through an active engagement with landowners, which encourages them to see the place in a holistic manner, to realise that their investment is better served by keeping this rich mix.
What is in store for your next move, in terms of next move?
Well, we have a 5-year maximum term that the legislation allows in the UK, and it's different to BID legislation elsewhere in the world. A lot of the United States experience is based on what they call sundowner clauses. So unless there's a petition to wind up a business improvement district, they continue, and that can be very attractive for us when we contemplate the logistics of running a ballot. That having been said, that discipline brings its own rewards. It means that our programme doesn't diverge from our membership, and that doesn't mean, as I've said earlier, us kind of slavishly seeing our role to be commercially driven, full stop. What it means is us leading our membership along avenues that perhaps they haven't had time to explore. Air quality probably is the best example of that currently. So we're halfway through almost precisely halfway through our 3rd term. And who knows, our destiny lies in the hands of our membership, and we're content with that.
Peter, thank you very much for taking the time with us today.
Yeah, pleasure to see you again.